Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining our online commemoration. I'm standing here in the German town of Halle in front of the synagogue. Yesterday, Jews all around the world were celebrating Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. 1 year ago, a right-wing extremist tried to gain access to the synagogue in Halle. His plan was to murder all Jews gathered inside. Fortunately, he did not succeed in entering the synagogue. He then turned to attack other people whose lives he deemed unworthy: Muslims, blacks, women. The perpetrator murdered 2 innocent people, Jana Lange and Kevin Schwarze. May their memory be a blessing. Today we are here with a delegation of the World Jewish Congress and the German Federal Government Commissioner for Jewish Life and the Fight Against Anti-Semitism to commemorate the victims of this heinous attack. We want to express our solidarity and compassion with all those affected by this crime. Before we see video messages by representatives of German and European Jewry, we will recall what happened here in Halle 1 year ago.
We start with breaking news from Germany, where police in the city of Halle say 2 people have been killed in a shooting.
Germany is in shock after an anti-Semitic attack on a synagogue in the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement.
Security is stepped up at synagogues here in New York City and around the world following a deadly attack in Germany. A heavily armed man tried to shoot his way into a synagogue in the town of Halle.
The man also he live streamed his attack from a camera mounted on the helmet online,
showing off his weapons and ammunition in a car before turning his gun on a woman walking by. The shooter then tries to break and shoot his way into a synagogue. Police say when the shooter couldn't get into the synagogue, he entered a nearby kebab shop and killed a man.
I think the Holocaust never happened.
We are standing here today outside the kebab shop 1 year after the Yom Kippur terror attack, and our hearts are still bleeding, our souls are still broken. For 1 long year, Jana Lange and Kevin Schwarze were not with us anymore. Jana has been murdered outside the synagogue, and Kevin, an innocent young man in the age of just 20, who had dreams and hopes for his future, has been bloodily murdered inside the kebab shop behind me because of pure hatred. May their memories be a blessing. We are standing here today to commemorate, and we will never forget the victims, never forget Jana and Kevin. We are standing here today and our hearts are bleeding. It is our duty, the duty of civil society and society as a whole, public and private actors, to stand up against any form of hatred, to stand up against anti-Semitism, racism, Islamophobia, against any form of hatred. No Jew hatred anymore. It is particularly disturbing when we see how in times of COVID-19 pandemic, abstruse conspiracy myths penetrate more and more into our society. How anti-Semitic incitement spreads unhindered, and how a continuity of right-wing extremist terror becomes more and more apparent. The murderer is also to be seen as a product of real and digital society. And this society must take appropriate action and change this situation. The social media platforms out there, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter and co., I ask you, what have you done to effectively prevent hatred from spreading? Today, 1 year after the Halle terror attack and 75 years after the Shoah, we ask, for how long do we have to coexist with hatred towards us Jews? For how long do we need to be persecuted, insulted, discriminated? For how long hatred against minorities will continue to spread its ugly face? For how long? Never again should mean never again. We will always speak up when discrimination shows its ugly face. We will always speak up when hatred is on its way, haters will never prevail. When they choose death, we choose life. When they choose hate, we choose love. Never will we be silent, never again, once and for always.
I must say, this is very, very moving for me because I think of what could have happened. I was in Pittsburgh right after the massacre took place, and I saw the reaction, and I felt it in my heart. And when I saw about what happened here, I immediately got very, very scared because I realized that had he been able to get through those doors, he would have killed everybody in the synagogue. And what a massacre, and what it means. But the real thing that disturbs me the most is that there were no police protection. Now, if there's any time there should be police protection for the Jewish people, it's something like the high holidays of the Jewish people. And that is something that I think we have to look at.
The Yom Kippur attack shook the German Jewish community to the bone. Every one of us felt as if he or she was in the Halle synagogue that day. There is a Talmudic phrase saying, Kol Israel arevim ze lazeh, which means all Jews are responsible for one another. It implies that the security of any Jew affects all of us. This Talmudic phrase also describes very well the purpose of the World Jewish Congress. We shall now hear from the Executive Vice President of the World Jewish Congress, Dr. Maram Stern.
I really don't know anymore what to say. Of course, I try to prepare something for this event, for this commemoration, but I'm not so sure that I'm really able. This is my third visit to this place. As a German Jew, I would have never thought I will visit Halle, not because I'm not good in geography, but because I just did not know where Halle was until exactly a year ago. Last year, during Yom Kippur, when I was called, and I was told what's happened, that the person tried to come through this door, to come in here, and just to shoot around. It was a shock. When I came here the next day, was the Federal Minister of Interior and Mr. Felix Klein. Yeah. It was a bigger shock even to see what could have happened if he would have succeeded. Yeah. It's a small synagogue. It's an amazing synagogue. It's a beautiful synagogue. And there's a crazy person which is inspired from the right. Yeah. AfD, of course, is part of it, of the right, just to kill without thinking what he would have really accomplished. He comes in, he kills. He didn't kill by chance. Yeah. The door, which has been replaced, yeah, somehow stopped him. He shot two other persons, unfortunately, and we feel very sorry for them. We feel sorry for everything what happened to their families. But it's still a shock for me as a German Jew who grew up in Berlin, yeah, after the war, who would have never thought something like this could ever happen again, that the person tries to walk into a synagogue in Germany just to shoot around. Yeah. And of course, this gives you a lot of questions. What happened? Why did it happen? Why are the right-wing parties still allowed to be as prominent as they are? Why is the German politics not able to finish with all this? We have a Minister of Interior, Seehofer, which is unique, who is trying everything, and I hope that he will try even more to stop all this. It's not easy, yeah? It's not easy to come here for the third time. I was convinced it would be much easier to just walk in, but it is not. And really, let's hope something like this will never, ever happen again in Germany or any other places. Thank you.
Whether it is a miracle or just the safety measures, by the Great Door, which is very famous now. The terrorist attack of Halle is a new quality of crimes. After the attack of Halle, nobody can deny the deadly dimension of anti-Semitism and right-wing extremism in Germany anymore. On the other hand, there is a very sad tradition of anti-Semitic attacks in Germany, which we should recall today, whether it was the selection of Jewish passengers in Entebbe 1976, or by German terrorists, or the terrorist attack on the Jewish Community Center in West Berlin 1969, or the one in Munich 1970, attacks on synagogues in West Berlin, in Lübeck or Erfurt, or the murder of Shlomo Lemin in Erlangen in 1980, they all show that right-wing extremism is a big threat of democracy in Germany. The federal government takes this threat very seriously. Recently, a cabinet committee was founded in this regard, and the federal government attributed 22 million euro for the safety of Jewish institutions lately. But protection is much more than only safety protection of buildings. We need to protect the Jewish community in Germany as a whole, in a holistic strategy. That means to protect them also in daily life, and that only works when we promote Jewish life in everyday culture, and that is at least as important as the fight against hatred. We celebrate this year, in this Jewish year, and in the coming calendar year, 1,700 years of Jewish life in Germany. This is a long period of time which was also shaped by great times of peaceful and fruitful living together. And it shows, that initiative shows, that 1,700 years, that Jewish life is part of our history, but also of present Germany and of the Germany in the future. And it is a great pleasure for me to be also Commissioner for Fostering and Protection of Jewish Life. This is a duty which is a pleasure for me to fulfill. And I wish to all of us that we will find doors that protect us when needed, but also that we will always find doors that will be easily opened without fear. Thank you very much.
A synagogue in Germany, for me, means more than just a place of worship. It's a symbol of resilience and hope, the embodiment of the miracle of Jewish life after the Shoah. A place where we should absolutely feel safe. Last year, on our highest holiday, there was an attempt to take this feeling away. A warning signal, inconceivable, cowardly attack. These are quotes from German politicians right after the news has spread. Today, one Yom Kippur later, I'm standing here at the synagogue where an attack happened that has not been a warning signal, but a result of ignoring all the warnings before. An attack that was conceivable because anti-Semitism has risen in Germany steadily in the last year. An attack that was not perpetrated cowardly, but confidently, encouraged by recent political developments in which the far right has gained power. As a Jew in Germany, I grew up with the fact that synagogues have to be protected by police. Freedom of religion is guaranteed by law, but what kind of a freedom if its practice is only possible under protection? 75 years after the Shoah, this absurdity is normalcy, Jewish normalcy, a normalcy that I'm not willing to accept in this country that is my home. And I won't let others determine our fate, nor impede a thriving Jewish future. Halle was an attack on all of our society, on our liberty and democracy. And as we mourn the loss of the 2 murdered people, we pledge to continue our fight against anti-Semitism and racism. But we need the whole society to stand up against intolerance and hatred and to stop being indifferent and to raise their voice, because we cannot afford to be silent. We must not be silent. And I promise we will not be silent.
Today is Tishrei the 11th, 5781. Yesterday we celebrated Yom Kippur, not here in the synagogue of Halle. We should rent another room, a big room, for all people who wanted to attend our prayer on Yom Kippur. 1 year and 1 day before the 10th of Tishrei 5780, in this synagogue, we also prayed for Yom Kippur. And before the Yom Kippur yesterday, I was asked a lot of times, what is the difference between this Yom Kippur this year and Yom Kippur last year and another Yom Kippur celebrations? And I told that Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur. We pray beginning with Kol Nidrei till Neila. And Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur, a lot of hundreds and thousands years. But now today, after we celebrated yesterday, I understood what is the difference. What is the difference between Yom Kippur this year and Yom Kippur last year? We began with Kol Nidrei, then it was Shacharis, then it was reading of Torah, and then came this assassination. And then after it, we could pray other prayers of Yom Kippur last year. But the most important prayer is Neila. And last year, it was impossible to pray Neila because we were in hospital in this time or in police. And the most important prayer was not possible last year. And yesterday, it was everything okay, and we prayed Neila. And I understood what is the difference. To pray Neila on Yom Kippur is the most important thing that you have in this year. And we did it yesterday, and I hope that the future will be better than we had in the last year. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday, Jews around the world were celebrating Yom Kippur. On the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, we were fasting and praying to God. 1 year ago, a right-wing extremist tried to gain access to the synagogue in Halle and to murder the people gathered inside. It's a miracle that the perpetrator did not succeed in executing his malicious plan. However, he murdered 2 people in the street and in the Kiezdöner, Jana Lange and Kevin Schwarze. Today, we commemorate them. My thoughts are with those affected by this despicable crime and their relatives. The attack on the Jewish community in Halle was possible because the security provided by the state was insufficient. It's a pity that Jewish facilities still have to be protected by the police. My deepest wish is for my children and grandchildren to see the day when such protective measures are no longer needed. Yet, the Halle attack showed how directly security for Jewish facilities is required. The German federal government and the federal states reacted swiftly after the attack and increased security measures and financial support. On the day after the horrific attack, I went directly to Halle to express my heartfelt sympathy. What touched me deeply is the enormous wave of solidarity that reached the Jewish community from German society. 1 year later, I will be returning to Halle for the official commemoration ceremony with the German federal president on October 9. I will also be visiting the Kiez Döner and of course the synagogue where yesterday's Yom Kippur prayer was held. Let me underline, Jews have been living in Germany for almost 1,700 years. Germany was and still is our home. The Jewish community is here to stay. Thank you.
Dear friends, I will never forget the deep sorrow and anguish that I felt at the end of Yom Kippur last year when I was informed about the attack on the synagogue in Halle and the 2 innocent victims that lost their lives on that day. All attacks on Jews or Jewish symbols in Germany have of course a certain connotation and are particularly painful. In the last years, the European Jewish Congress has been insisting on the importance of filling the many security gaps that existed across Europe, as well as preparing our communities to face crisis situations. Thankfully, the Jewish community of Halle was prepared and knew how to respond to this attack so that a bigger tragedy could be averted. Over the last year, the German federal government has fully acknowledged the security gaps, and we greatly welcome the recent pledge that was made to the Central Council of Jews in Germany to substantially increase the security of synagogues and other communal buildings across the country. We trust that all together we will be able to stand up against hatred, wherever it comes from. On behalf of the European Jewish Congress, we would like to thank you for organizing this important commemoration, and we wish you all a safe and peaceful future.
We will not forget what happened here in Halle. We will not forget the victims and the survivors. As a German Jew, a Democrat, a European, and a member of the World Jewish Congress Jewish Diplomatic Corps, I assure you, we will continue to fight anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, and all other forms of hatred against minorities. Thank you for having joined us today. We shall close with a video message from the German Union of Jewish Students. Solidarity.
Anti-discrimination.
Tikkun Olam.
The right-wing terror attack on Yom Kippur 5718 was a shock, but it wasn't surprising. This year marks the 4th anniversary of the Oktoberfest bombing and the murdering of Shlomo Levin and Frida Pöschke in Erlangen. Both actions have been executed by members of the neo-Nazi group Wehrsportgruppe Hoffmann. In the early 2000s, the neo-Nazi group NSU murdered 10 people, 9 of them with a migration background. The Amadeo Antonio Foundation counted more than 200 deaths linked to far-right extremism since 1919. We can see an increasing level of far-right extremism, violence, and anti-Semitic actions all over Germany. We, the Jewish Student Union of Germany, are fighting against any forms of racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, and far-right extremism.
We, the Jewish Student Union of Germany, believe in a peaceful coexistence regardless of religion, nationality, or skin color. We believe in solidarity. However, we need to turn our words into actions. Therefore, we decided to start a fundraising campaign for the brothers Ismet and Rifat Tekin, who witnessed a person getting killed by an anti-Semitic and right-wing terrorist in their kebab shop. It is extremely important to draw attention to the Tekin's brothers' fight to save their livelihood by keeping their shop alive. But we meant to do it in a way they could directly profit from. It is necessary for the city of Halle, and in fact for Germany overall, that the Tekin brothers will be able to preserve their livelihood in the future. Until now, we fundraised 17,305 euros from all over the world. That donated amount is a statement that people are eager to fight for a more multicultural society here in Germany. We stand together against hate and against fascism, against racism and against anti-Semitism, because that is solidarity.
Tikkun Olam.
Anti-discrimination.
Solidarity.